special guest is Ireland's own Helen Joyce, author of the best-selling... Don't need to introduce her, do I? I like to, within these gender wars, I like to think of Helen as our weapon of mass destruction. Take it away.
So I'm not allowed out of the house normally with this T-shirt. I wore it inside out on the way in, but it's got the word bigot on there, so I thought I'd draw my attention to that after the introduction from Menno earlier. I'm not going to talk for long. I wasn't actually expecting to be in Dublin this weekend, and then when I realised I was going to be, Annie very kindly found a few minutes for me to fit in on the programme. So thank you and congratulations to all of you for making this happen. What I want to do is just riff a little bit on what it might mean going forward to be a not all gay. And I'm going to start by quoting a cover story from the LA Review of Books, which I'm sure all of you read with bated breath every month. Don't even know if it's a monthly. And in 2019, they put Pete Buttigieg on the cover with his husband. And at the time, he was seeking nomination to be the Democratic presidential candidate. And the caption was, "Heterosexuality without women." And it was followed by the strapline, "This photo is about a lot of things, but one of its defining features is its heterosexuality." So anyone ordinary thought that was completely insane, obviously. It's not a very well-known publication. It's not like the New York Review of Books. So my colleagues at The Economist, which was where I was at the time, who covered the US, had not seen it. It wasn't the sort of thing that got picked up in the newspapers and newsletters that any journalist covering the US would have been following. But I did show it to a few of my colleagues, and they all thought it was as barking as I did, but so much so that they really just couldn't get their heads around it. And they just thought, like, what could make you more gay than marrying someone of the same sex as you? Doing drag? Wearing leather chaps? Pretending to be a dog? Like, isn't the whole fancying and loving and marrying the same sex as you the whole point of being gay? Isn't that what it's about? So I thought it was as mad as they did, but by this time I'd really been looking at gender woo for about 2 years, and I understood it a bit better than they did. The point was that the couple were looking very low-key and normy. So they were wearing shirts, they had their hair cut short, short back and sides, and they were standing actually in front of a white picket fence. So what this article was about the idea of queer, not gay. So the sort of non-norminess being the principle. That's what queer really means, being a non-normie. So it's destabilizing definitions, deliberately destabilizing them, and denying the existence or meaningfulness of any objective categories, and preferring things that are unusual, whether that's either just minority or indeed non-normative. So you regard any racial grouping as better than white, like it's just better to be anything except white. Obviously, this is ridiculous because there are loads of countries where normal is not white. But anyway, there we go. It's an incredibly Eurocentric or American-centric viewpoint too. So any knowledge system is better than scientific rationalism, and any society is better than the one that we inherited from the Enlightenment. But most especially, it's about approving of things that have conventionally been regarded as immoral, perverted, distasteful, or sinful. And that, of course, does include fancying, loving, and marrying people of the same sex as you. So I think what that article was saying was that Buttigieg and his husband didn't see themselves within this non-normative framing at all. They just thought, they weren't reclaiming immorality or sin or saying, you know, normal is bad. They were just saying, we're normal. What's wrong with being gay? Nothing. There just are normies who happen to fancy someone of the same sex as them, and then they otherwise have extremely mainstream beliefs. They don't need to queer anything to live their life as they want, and they don't think they're better than straight people. They aren't trying to overthrow anything. So I looked up Pete Buttigieg's CV. So he did PPE at Oxford. That's like half of all politicians in the UK do that subject, politics, philosophy, and economics. He deployed to Afghanistan. He worked at McKinsey. His husband is a teacher. Like, they're literally institution man, the pair of them. They just happen to be gay. So when people want to defend same-sex marriage or same-sex relationships, the first thing they always say, and in fact Annie said it at the beginning as well, she said, what harm are we doing to anyone else? And that's great. That's saying it's a negative liberty, and negative liberties are vital. If you don't have your negative liberties, your liberty to not do things, your liberty to be left alone, then you're not going to have any other liberty. And then they say, well, it makes me happy. So what business is it of anyone else? Now have a go using those two arguments to defend being gay, with no other argument, but also condemning zoophilia or necrophilia or incest. You can't do it. It's not enough. Negative liberties and it's not hurting anybody else won't do it for you. If you want to get out of that trap, you actually have to make a positive case. You have to say that some things are better than other things and some things are actually bad. And then you can say that stable, loving relationships between consenting adults increase the sum total of human happiness and human flourishing. It's an actively good thing, and not just for the two people involved, but for society at large. So The Economist ran a cover story in 1996, which was really early in favour of gay marriage. The cover said, "Let them wed," and it showed a wedding cake.
I've got that.
Good man. Yeah, and it was the groom and the groom, two little dolls together on the top of the wedding cake. It was the most hostile correspondence The Economist ever got on any subject, and you should see what we get whenever we run things about the Middle East or other things like that. Before that, the most negative ever was the paper's call to abolish the British monarchy. So you're even worse than getting rid of the Queen. So it was written by a chap called Jonathan Rauch, who's an academic who was on sabbatical at The Economist at the time. He was a gay man himself. And in it, he said that he wrote the package that went with the cover, and he wrote in it, he said, "I can no more imagine marrying a woman than marrying a toaster." I've always remembered that image. And in a book he wrote later on about being a child and then a young teenager and a young man, becoming aware that he was gay, he describes a memory from childhood. "I am sitting at the piano daydreaming one afternoon, and it occurs to me that I will never get married. This was a discovery at first merely puzzling, but later, with adolescence and then into early adulthood, sickening. It pointed ahead to a life in which furtive sex and fleeting assignations might be attainable, but the enduring security and companionship of marriage would be forever out of reach." And then he said he spent many years denying even to himself that he was gay. So I'm old enough that I know people like that in this country. Bit older than me, mostly. People who stayed at home with their aging parents, who never thought to themselves, like, why is my lovely son or my lovely daughter just never dating? Like, people didn't know. And they deserved better. They deserved better than this. There was a lot of shame and loneliness that could have been avoided in a lot of people's lives who could have been richer and happier. And in 2014, when it became very clear that the American Supreme Court was about to legalize gay marriage across America, The Economist invited Rauch back to write again about it. And he was already married by that point. He'd got married in Washington. And he pointed to 3 reasons why it was inevitable. So the first one was that there was a new generation of people who just really were just used to the idea, And the second one was that by that time, a strong majority of Americans felt that it was, quote, "generally innate and not inherently harmful to be gay." And underneath those was a third point, which was visibility. So after the AIDS crisis, many more people came out as gay, and most Americans had realized by that point that they knew and probably liked and loved people who were gay. And Jonathan wrote, "The emergence of a conservative narrative supporting gay marriage, small c conservative, gay marriage and families is a game changer. It domesticates quite literally what was once seen as a threat. Precisely the fear of being domesticated led many gay activists at the time of The Economist's original cover to support the idea of marriage equality warily, if at all. He said that people who were most sceptical in 1996 of his support for gay marriage would say that as a matter of equality, yes, gay people should have that right, but that they shouldn't actually do it. And he said, this is a quote from him again, "Our movement is supposed to be about liberation from stifling sexual and social norms." Well, whether or not you believe that gay people are born this way, which Jonathan does, what he's saying is we need to make a positive case for gay relationships, not just the negative, "it's none of your business," or "if it makes me happy, what's the harm?" It has to be that it's a positive good, that stable, supportive relationships are part of playing a full part as citizens, and that they are, in that important sense, normal. And that's the only way to counter queerness, which is all about leaning into being abnormal, accepting that you're defined by what you oppose, not what you are, and then you always have to push further. Liberation becomes something that moves further and further from you, that can never be attained. And then more and more things get normalized, but you have to push further again to remain abnormal. It's a recipe for permanent revolution. And what it seems to me that the queer lobby or the LGBTQ lobby want is this sort of bizarre situation where they are simultaneously on the margins, liberated from everything, in particular judgment, at the same time that they're culturally dominant and able to dictate to the mainstream. Okay, so not all gays. So not all gays support the various harms that you listed in your introduction. But beyond that, there's something that is not just the not, it's the what for. And I think you need to make a positive case. And then as the LGBTQ goes down the toilet, you are still known as upstanding members of the society who contribute to the common good, just like everybody else does. Thank you.
I mean, while we've got here, anybody got a question for Helen? What?
Too scared.
Yes.
Oh,
it's a
that
comment.
sounds ominous.
Remember, some of you remember 10 years ago, we were probably here or places like it, and we were told, like, why are we bringing in marriage equality? Because it's about love and commitment. Gay people don't want to go around in feather boas. Gay people don't want to do anything mad. They want to marry.
I do, sorry. I want to get married in one.
They want to get married, have a life of companionship, and raise a family. That's what they want. It's about love and commitment. It's not about upsetting anyone. It's not about overturning. We were told time and again, you do not bring in anything else. You say, to win the case of marriage equality, you say, it's about love, it's about commitment, it's about stability. That is what we want, and that's what we're arguing for. You think we would have got marriage equality today with gender queer everything, and children being told they're in the wrong body, not a possibility.
I completely agree. And I mean, I think that, for me, that 2019 cover summed it up. There's people who think it's so obvious that that's what LGBTQ is about, that they don't even realize the rest of us don't understand it. And if we say we don't understand it, well, we're just idiots, we're just ignorant, like we're normies. It's like it's a massive insult to be average in your tastes and your interests and just the way you live your life, like just wanting things that everybody wanted, I thought. And when you put that there, it's so mad that if we say that's what they want, we sound like conspiracy theorists. I've tried it. I've tried trying to explain this many times to people who don't know anything about it, and they think I'm making it up. It can't possibly be that bad. But there, they put it on the cover themselves. There's a whole essay. It's madness. Every sentence of that essay is madness. We just have to show them that,
The reason I remember that cover is I was living in London for the first time in '96, and I wasn't out. I mean, everybody knew, but I didn't. They kept telling me, and after a while I thought, okay, maybe you've got a point. But I was very uncomfortable with the gay thing, and seeing that cover, and it just said, let them wed.
Yeah.
It was so simple, and it was a real moment. So I took that cover, and I've got it somewhere in a scrapbook. One more question. Oh, competition. Okay, 2 then, if you keep them short. Bev, from LGB Alliance.
Hi, Helen. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and I just want to say that in 1970, when we had our first march, I made this rather sort of twee little remark. It's important to know that we're not ashamed to be homosexual. And somebody else, Mr. John Breslin, said, we don't want to be a freak show, we just want to be the same as anyone else. That was the roots of gay liberation in 1970.
And I mean, I don't mind people being freak shows or not the same as everybody else. It's not, you can't be that you're simultaneously unusual and dominant. It can't work. Some people are unusual, and that's fine, and we can accommodate them as long as it isn't getting to the weirder reaches. But there is good and bad. There is better and worse. There are objectively good ways to support human flourishing, and there are things that don't.
Okay, last question, and then we're going to have a coffee break, because not all gays are down with all this crazy gender stuff, but plenty of gays want to have a cup of coffee or tea.
I think you're absolutely right about making it a positive statement instead of like a negative thing. And love and commitment, terrific, really help with gay marriage. Do you have any suggestions for the equivalent verbal positioning here?
I mean, no, I'm rubbish at that. I mean, the only reason I ever, I sometimes get good phrasing because of speaking publicly, but in terms of slogans and the rest, it's about batting them around. I love not all gays is great. It's the moment we're at. I'm not saying change it. It's just look forward to the next thing, and the next thing isn't a not, it's a yes. It's a what. I said that it's not a not, it's a what. And that came out, and I went, oh, that sounds quite good. I must write that one down.
It's not a not, it's a what.
But you
On
see
that
what I
note.
mean? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, try it out, try things, speak about it. Sorry, I'll just say one more thing, if I may, before I go. One of the virtues of free speech is that you speak. And when you speak, you think, and then you come up with good expressions, and other people say things back to you, and you think, oh, I never thought of that. And we've been very sadly lacking in that in the last 10, 20 years, because we haven't been allowed to speak. They've made us stupid by stopping us from speaking. So now we're speaking. We can come up with good slogans, much better than I could do.
Thank you so much, Helen. Right, you're free. But we want you